And now, when the chaff was on about being afeard of the Malays, we used to rub it into the old man, but he would flame up and answer us that his boy died in his duty and that he couldn't be afeard of naught. One night there was a row on among the midshipmen, for they said that one of them, Tempest by name, owned up to being afraid of being creased. He was a rare bright little chap of about 13 that was always in fun and trouble of some kind, but he was soft-hearted, and sometimes the other lads would tease him. He would own up truthfully to anything he thought or felt, and now they had drawn him to owning something that none of them would, no matter how true it might be. Well, they had a rare fight, for the boy was never backward with his fists, and by accident it came to notice of the captain. He insisted on being told what it was all about, and when young Tempest spoke out and told him, he stamped on the deck and called out, "I'll have no cowards on this ship," and was going on when the boy cut in. "I'm no coward, sir. I'm a gentleman." "Did you say you were afraid? Answer me, yes or no?" "Yes, sir, I did, and it was true. I said I feared the Malay creases, but I did not mean to shirk them for all that. Henry of Navarre was afraid, but all the same he—"
"Henry of Navarre be damned," shouted the captain. "And you too. You said you were afraid, and that, let me tell you, is what we call a coward in the Queen's Navy. And if you are one, you can at least have the grace to keep it to yourself. No, answer to me, to the masthead for the remainder of the day. I want my crew to know what to avoid, and know it when they see it."
And he walked away, while the lad, without a word, ran up the maintop. Some way the men didn't say much about this, but the only one that said anything to the point was old Land's End, and says he, "That may be a coward, but I'd chance it that he was a boy of mine." As we went up the Straits and got the sun on us, and the damp heat of that kettle of a place, Lord bless ye steam there all day and all night like a copper at the galley, we began to look around for the pirates, and there wasn't a man that got drowsy on the watch. We coasted along as we went up north, and took a look into the creeks and rivers as we went. It was up these that the Malays hid themselves, for the fevers and such that swept off their betters like flies didn't seem to have any effect on them. There was pretty bad bits, I tell you, up some of them rivers through the mango groves, where the marshes spread away mile after mile as far as you could see, and where everything that is noxious, both beast and bird and fish, and crawling thing, and insect and tree, and bush and flower, and creeper, is most at home. But the pirate ships kept ahead of us, or, if they came south again, passed us by in the night, and so we ran up till about the middle of the peninsula, where the worst of the piracies had happened. There, we got up as well as we could to look like a ship in distress. And sure enough, we deceived the beggars, for 2 of them came out one early dawn and began to attack us. They was an ugly-looking craft, too, long, low hull and lateen sails, and a double crew, twice told in every one of them. But if the crafts was ugly, men was worse, for uglier devils I never saw. Swarthy yellow chaps, some of them, and some with shaven crowns and white eyeballs, and others as black as your shoe, with 1 or 2 white men, more shame among them, but all carrying creases as long as your arm, and pistols in their belts. They didn't get much change from us, I tell you. We let them get close, and then we gave them a broadside that swept their decks like a hailstorm. But we was unlucky that we didn't grapple them, for they managed to shift off and run for it. Our boats was out quick, but we daren't follow them where they ran into a wide creek with mango swamps on each side as far as the eye could reach. The boat came back after a bit and reported that they had run up the river, which was deep enough, but with a winding channel between great mud banks where alligators lay in hundreds. There seemed some sort of fort where the river narrowed, and the pirates ran behind it and disappeared up the bend of the river. Then the preparations began. We knew we had got 2 craft, at any rate, caged in the river, and there was every chance that we had found their lair. Our captain wasn't one to let things go asleep, and by the daylight next morning we was ready for an attack. The Pinnace and 4 other boats started out under the first lieutenant to prospect, and the rest that was left on board waited, as well they could, till we came back. That was an awful day. I was in the second boat, and we all kept well together when we began to get into the narrows of the mouth of the river. When we started, we went in a couple of hours after the flood tide, and so all we saw when the light came seemed fresh and watery. But as the tide ran out, and the big